Hey everyone, it's Mike. The new Universus set, Critical Role Heroes of Exandria, is coming out in March. Last week they just finished up revealing all the characters from the set, so I just want to go through all the characters, talk briefly about what they do, highlight some cards in Standard now that are going to be synergistic with them, and talk about where I see them landing on a future tier list for competitive play. So, let's get into it. Beauregard, Lionette, Expositor. Beauregard's on Earth, Fire, and Water, and is getting an A plus for flavor right off the bat. Her first enhance, once per turn, your turn. You discard an attack, you check a 6, and then you put 2 cards from the top of your deck into your card pool as mid, kick, punch, slam attacks. They're 3 mids for 3 at base, and you add them to the attack stack, which basically means that you get to play them right after the current attack resolves without needing to check any more for them. So you play an attack from your hand, you say, hey, check a 6, discard an attack, I have 2 more attacks coming your way. You can do this at any point in your string. It doesn't care about progressive difficulty, so you might play 4 normal attacks in a turn and then finish off with just 2 quick punches in quick succession like that. And then her second enhance, commit a foundation, your face up, kick, punch, or slam gets +1 damage for each attack in your card pool. So progressively more damage as you keep going, but you specifically can't give this bonus to the 2 face down attacks that you're putting in. So the way I see it, Beauregard is a pretty decent aggro character. She's going to get to pick up Kendo's kit pretty well, especially Double Jumbo Fist, which, if you lead off with that, is going to give passive bonuses to the face-down attacks that you add in later. You can also look at something like Teaming with the Attack Titan, which is going to give you a benefit for having all these attacks in your card pool already. So you can lead off 1 attack, put in the 2 with Beauregard, and then Teaming the Attack Titan is already down to a 2 difficulty move, and you only spent a couple cards to do that. You don't necessarily have to run all punch, slam, or kicks in your deck. Teaming obviously is not one of those, so you can't give it the bonus, but you're just looking for these kind of synergies with her to throw a lot of attacks on not that much difficulty. I'm going to start Beauregard at about a C plus, I want to say. I would maybe bring her up to a B depending on what we see in her kit that comes out with the set. But right now I think that while her abilities are really cool, she's asking a lot of your resources. You need to discard specifically an attack for her first enhance. You do have to pass a check on a 6, so if you check a 3, you're committing 3 foundations if you want it to go off. Otherwise, you just discard that attack for nothing. And then her enhance does require you to commit foundations on top of that, so she needs a lot of resources ready in her stage to actually go off. That, on top of having no defense naturally on her face, is a little worrisome for me. But yeah, C plus is where I'm going to put her. Keyleth of the Air Shari is on 4 symbols, air, earth, fire, and water, and I don't want to just glaze over that. I think that's really good. She's going to have access to 4 symbols worth of attuned cards, 2 of which have already gotten multiple sets of support from Attack on Titan, and then 2 of which are getting more support in this set. So she'll have access to a lot of different kinds of abilities. Her first form is Command Foundation to unflip a foundation. So every turn you get to unflip 1. Enhance once per turn, ready a foundation with difficulty 1 or less. So this could always hit a face down, but typically it's going to be something that you want to use on both turns. And then response once per turn. After an attack deals damage, either your attack or your rival's, your rival flips a foundation. So just a lot of resource gain here. Repeatedly unflipping foundations is a very strong ability. Really going after your rival's stage with having them continually flip foundations is strong. And just having that extra readied foundation on both turns adds up to a lot. I think it's enough to have the defense to be a 7-hander. And when building her, I would make sure you look at foundations that either don't care when you commit them, like Defiant Stance, or give you extra bonuses when you ready them, like I Can Taste Sounds from the Star Trek deck. I think that Keyleth is very powerful without seeing too much support for her, so I would start her in B tier, depending on what she gets and how much she can really do with those 4 symbols of support, I could see her ending up at A+. I know Chris Smith is doing the Year of Caliph. I think he's taking this deck to all of his events this year, and I'm really excited to see how that goes. On to Jester Lavore, Traveler's Faithful, a 7-hand, 20 health on Chaos, Life, and Water. Enhance twice per turn. At the top card of your discard pile to your hand, discard a random card. If you discarded a copy of the same card, this attack gets +2 or -2 speed. And then response after your spell attack deals damage, gain a health, and ready a foundation that has not been ready to this combat phase. I think that Jester might be the worst character in the set, unfortunately. The random discard for a twice per turn potential speed change is pretty tough. Anytime you're doing something randomly, you're adding variance to your card game, and that's usually not a winning strategy in competitive play. And then her response, you're already keyword gated to spell attack specifically, and it just says you gain health when your spell attack hits, and you get to ready one. Readying one is good, but this whole kit together doesn't really do it for me. But that's okay, because you can just play Old Jester. Jester from the Challenger decks is going to see 3 new symbols of support. She wanted to see spell cards. We're already seeing new spell cards. I think that she definitely needs to be revisited when the full set comes out. She's already been proven as a character that can make top cuts in Standard. This is one to look out for. Vexalia, Protector of the Wilds, is a 6-hander on Air, Earth, and Life, which happen to be the exact symbols that her Challenger deck character had, so she gets all of the support from that deck that she wants. Enhance once per turn, build an ally asset or ally backup from your card pool. If you did, end it as your turn, draw a card. So if you get to do this on your turn, you're a 7-hander, you aren't a secret 8-hander like some characters. And then response, flip a foundation. After your ranged weapon attack is not blocked, unflip a foundation. So this does lock you on keywords for your attacks to ranged weapons. That's probably okay because her whole kit from the Challenger deck was about ranged weapons, and those are very common keywords on these symbols. She already gets support from her Challenger deck in Trinket, which enhances itself into your card pool for +4 damage or -4 damage. And then you can just build it right back down with Vex to clear that out of the card pool again and draw a card if you're doing it aggressively. And then, again, unflipping foundations repeatedly is very powerful. You can potentially keep unflipping the same one over and over again each time you hit. I really like Vast Hybrid here if you decide to build Vex on Air. It has this once per turn form where if you have momentum, all your attacks get +1 damage. And then with her response, you can flip this as a cost and then also unflip it as the result of that ability, and then just form it again because it doesn't see that it was the same card, so it resets that once per turn. And then each time you get through with a ranged weapon, your attacks are just getting bigger and bigger as the turn goes on. Might not be actually good enough for competitive play, but it's just a very cool interaction that I found, and that's the sort of thing I'd be looking for when I built her in Standard. Vex, I'm starting at a C+. I don't think she's crazy right now as just a 6-hander that wants you to be playing very specific cards in her kit, so ally assets or backups plus ranged or weapon attacks. I would need to see more of the set to really see what she's capable of. I could see her going as high as like a B tier, but right now she isn't doing anything inherently broken with her abilities. Vaxildan, Daggermaster, is a 6-hander on Air, Death, and Void. His first enhance is this attack gets +X damage or -X speed, where X is the number of cards in your card pool. So you really want to fill up your card pool to give your attacks a lot of damage. Or on defense, essentially what this says is every time you block an attack, you're ignoring progressive difficulty on your blocks because you just -X speed to kind of cancel out the progressive on those blocks. And in response, after you play your 3rd weapon attack this turn, your rival discards a card and you draw a card. So again, not necessarily keyword locked on weapons, but you want to have enough of a density of weapon attacks that you're triggering that on all of your attack strings. because that's where he gets really powerful, becomes that 7-hander, and making your opponent discard on your turn is very strong. When building Vax, I would probably be looking to go Death or Void with combined firepower, specifically because when you use combined firepower, it goes into your card pool, so you're seeing it with his Enhance to get those extra stats, but it doesn't count towards progressive, so it's not hurting your checks at all. Similarly, there's a couple cards right now, like Acid Screen, that when you're playing them, you ignore face downs as progressive difficulty. So if you have a way to flip the attacks in your card pool, which there's some support for right now on these symbols, you can build up a pool of face downs, play something like Acid Screen on relatively low difficulty, but still get the max benefit from your Enhance that's counting your card pool. I think that Vax is very strong without too much support, just because he's playing Combined Firepower so well already, and that card's really, really good. So I'm going to start him around a B+, but depending on his kit, I could see him as an A+, and maybe be the premier 6-hander death aggro deck of the metagame. Caleb Widowgas Fiery Transmuter is, I think, the first mage we're looking at. Mage is a class, one of the new character types, that really cares about action cards. So you are a 6-hander, 29 health on Chaos, Fire, and Void. Enhance once per turn, discard a spell card. Add a spell card with the same difficulty as a discarded card from your discard pile to your hand. So we have already seen some actions and some attacks and some foundations, both in the Crit Roll Challenger decks and in the set so far, that are spells. So right there, the Enhance to potentially turn a foundation into an attack, or vice versa, to kind of sculpt where your turn's going to go, is pretty cool. You can also use it on your rival's turn to potentially tutor the correct block zone that you need to your hand. There are some very powerful spell actions like Wound Restore that have very strong benefits, but you don't necessarily want all the time, so being able to discard that when you don't need it to pick up maybe a 3-diff foundation, maybe a 3-diff attack if we see one. Just a good versatility there. And then the response, after you play an action card, your rival loses a health. If you've played it 3 or more times this turn, seal this character. So this is where, once again, Combined Firepower comes in. Combined Firepower, you can play offense and defense very easily from the discard pile, and it's going to trigger that because it's an action card. This response doesn't care if it's a spell action. Any action will do. I don't think that you're going to build a deck that takes your rival from full health to 0 just off of making them lose 3 health a turn from your response, but this can kill your rival, which is pretty huge. So your poke turns are pretty scary because their life total is more precious than it might otherwise be. And yeah, that's going to add up. Like 2 or 3 times a turn on your turn and their turn is very, very strong. If there's more actions that are as repeatable as Combined Firepower, then I think Caleb has a real game plan, but it's going to be really dependent on what we see. Right now, I want to put him at a B because I think that spell actions are going to get a ton of support in the set. I think he will have the versatility to get a lot of value out of his Enhance and get a lot of threat out of his response. And he's a popular character, so I think that good players will be trying to build with him and trying to take him to that competitive level of viability. Scanlan is a tough one. He is a 5-hander on Chaos, Earth, and Order. He has this once per turn Tenacious response. After you play an action card, build the top card of your deck face down. And then Enhance Commit, reveal the top card of your deck. This attack gets +2 or -2 speed. If you revealed a non-foundation card, it gets +4 or -4 speed instead, and you may add 1 non-attack card from your discard pile to your hand. So that Enhance being a commit cost is interesting from a balancing perspective. It means that the developers thought it was strong enough to require that commit so that you couldn't do it both on your turn and your rival's turn. It's a little weird. It's always going to do that +2 or -2 speed, and then if you can stack the top of your deck, or if you get lucky, probably a little less than half the time, depending on your foundation ratios, that +4 or -4 speed is a big deal, and then picking up a card is a big deal. I think it's going to be used more defensively than offensively because you can't get the attack with it. But the interesting part about this character is his response on that once per turn. After you play an action card, build the top card of your deck face down. That is potentially a lot of free resources. There are 2 cards I wanted to highlight right now that let you trigger this on the first turn of the game. I Am Here is a first form that most of the time is going to either build into foundation or just clear itself when you're going first and you can't play attacks. And if you hit a foundation with it, you're also hitting a foundation with Scanlan, so you can just start your first turn with 2 foundations and no progressive, which lets you do some really greedy builds, which is pretty cool. Similarly, Cremation, if it's in your hand and your rival is going first, if they build 3, you get to use the response on Cremation to take a momentum and get a foundation. So again, it lets you just kind of cheat that first turn limitation. I'm going to say that if there are any more cards on Chaos or on his attune symbols that let you use actions in that first turn of the game, he might be worth looking at. Right now, with just these, I don't think it's quite enough to overcome the being a 5-hander and not having that many other things going on. So right now I'm going to put Scanlan at a D. I think his ceiling is probably just a C, kind of like a locals character doing cool, gimmicky things. But again, not necessarily doing anything broken right now. Not the Brave Chaotic Meddler is a 7-hander on Air, Chaos, and Void, and she is another very aggressive character in this new set. She has Enhance Your Turn. Your rival mills 2 if the milled cards share a card type, seal 1 rival foundation. So that is gonna hit a little more than half the time. Depending on your rival's build, is probably between 50 and 60% to hit, assuming you aren't stacking the top 2 cards of their deck. But this ability to repeatedly seal your rival's game pieces on your turn to turn off their defensive foundations is pretty strong. And then we have Enhance. Your attack gets plus X speed. X equals your momentum plus 1. So everything is always getting plus 1 speed. And you have the Chaos symbol, so there's some really easy ways to add on to that momentum. Things like Determined Advance, things like Quick Burn. If you can get 3 or 4 momentum and suddenly you're giving 4 or 5 speed on everything, you just need to find one powerful attack to dump that momentum into, and you can get something unblockable very quickly. And then she has this response, commit, spend a momentum. After you block an attack, it deals no damage. We've seen aggro characters have text like this before to just have that little bit of defense on face so that they can either do a mismatch block and not take anything or deal with a throw. Cost of a momentum is pretty big, but you're going to be playing something that's snapping a lot of momentum anyway, so you'll probably have some to spare. This not character isn't really my style, so I don't know how to gauge her against other characters in the meta doing similar things right now, but I guarantee that if I see a Not the Brave across from me, I'm going to lose some games. I'm going to start Not off at a C+. I don't think there's anything necessarily putting her far above other characters kind of in that lane of just aggro 7-handers, but she is one of the more efficient one that we've seen so far. Taryon Darrington, Naive Creator, is a weird one. He has an Enhance once per turn, remove X momentum, build an asset from your discard pile with difficulty equal to or less than X plus 1, X may equal 0. I had to read this card 3 times before I figured out that what that means is that your Enhance, you can spend no momentum and build in a 1-diff asset from your discard pile once per turn. There's a lot of 1-diff assets in the game right now. The best one wasn't on his symbols and also just got nerfed, but there's definitely some UVS Ultra searches you can do to see what you can pick up with that. I'm sure we're going to see some more 1-diff assets that he'll be able to tutor into play, and that's going to be a lot of added stage presence that he gets for pretty low cost, so that's interesting. And then the other part, Enhance, commit an asset. This attack gets plus X or minus X speed. X is the printed difficulty of the asset committed to pay for the ability. So all these assets you're building in for free. Some assets like Soup or Badgie up here just build themselves in when you play them. You get to have a lot of speed reduction or pump on your board. If you can either hardcast or cheat in something like the Cerritos, which is a 6 diff asset, committing that for 6 speed on your attack is pretty crazy. So this guy definitely has some top end potential of what he's capable of, as far as abusing the discard pile, using assets, which are one of those card types where they're either pretty medium or very broken if your character cares about them. I don't really know where to put this character, but a lot of players who are better than me are very excited about him. So right now I'm going to stick him in B tier and wait until one of those players beats me up with him before moving him up or down accordingly. Pike Trickfoot Ferocious Priestess is a 6-hander on Fire, Life, and Water. She says, enhance on your turn, gain a health, and enhance if this attack's damage is greater than printed, it gets +2 or -2 speed. So these are some very basic abilities, honestly. Just gaining back health on all your attacks is nice. It's going to keep you at full health most of the time, which means that you can take a poke turn without worrying too much. And then the somewhat conditional speed buff or debuff is pretty good. A lot of the attacks coming at you that you care about will typically have more damage than speed. And then looking at your own attacks, you can focus your foundations and your support kits to make sure you're getting that damage bonus and then rely on your face for +2 speed. There's a few things on the fire symbol that let you pay health for a benefit, which you can then just gain right back. There's a few cards in the new set that give you benefits from being at maximum health, which Pike is very good at being at. There's some old cards that care about that as well, like Spiral Blasts. The long story short here is I think Pike is fine, but ultimately kind of boring, and boring in a bad way, because she's not giving so many stats that she's boring but really good. She's just kind of fine. I think I'm just going to put her in C tier. If there's something that really rewards you for being at max health or being the healer class or something like that, she's worth looking at, but I don't think she really cracks the bubble right now. Yasha, I'm not going to try that one. Yasha, Orphan Maker, is a 6-hander on Fire, Death, and Void. She says, if you take 3 or more damage from an attack, you get a rage counter. And then enhance. Your attack gets +X damage. X equals half of the number of rage counters you have, rounded up, +1. So at 0 rage counters, you're getting a damage. At 1 rage counter, you're getting 2 damage. At 3, it gets up to 3 damage, etc., etc. And then enhance once per game. Remove 6 rage counters. Your rival removes 2 cards from their hand. I am really struggling with the design of Yasha because, as it stands right now, you have almost no agency of how many rage counters you're going to get. You need to get 6 for your once per game, which means you need to have taken 3 or more damage from 6 attacks. So even if you find a way to bait your rival into attacking you that many times and only taking 3 damage a time, that's still 18 damage that you've taken at least. And if your rival is scared of your damage bonus or your once per game, they can just choose to literally never attack you until they think they can get you in one shot, which leaves you with a character who's essentially blank unless they print ways to put more rage counters on your character, which we haven't seen yet, but honestly, I would be surprised if that didn't exist. However, as is, Yasha is asking a lot of your opponent to kind of walk into your trap, but it's not a trap because it's all face up on your character card. If your opponent is attacking you, though, you want to be able to have some damage reduction, which all of these symbols have some life gain, which Death has in pretty efficient ways, and then you probably want to play something like Throws, or things where you don't necessarily care about the speed because you can use this once per game to take out your rival's hand, and then you don't care if the speed of your attack is low because it just can't block. Or just, again, play throws, put damage on them. If you're getting rage counters for 3 or more damage, then you're kind of like Godzilla, I guess. But yeah, right now, Yasha is asking a ton of your deck and a lot of your rival to actually have any text. So I think she's pretty solidly a D. Not quite Jester 2 levels of D, but yeah, not doing it for me, unfortunately. Grog Strongjaw Mighty Half Giant. Now, this is how you do rage counters. This is a 5-hander on Death, Earth, and Fire who says, if an attack deals damage, get a rage counter. This is your attack or your rival's attack. It's not locked behind a damage threshold. It just happens. Response. Before you would take damage from an unblocked attack, so you can't half block this, it has to be fully unblocked, reduce that damage by 2 to a minimum of 1. So you aren't a 31 HP character, you are probably way more than that because everything that is unblocked is 2 less. And then enhance, remove a rage counter from this card, draw a card, and your attack gets plus 3 damage. Drawing a card is crazy. Drawing a card as a 5-hander is crazy. You can use this ability on your rival's turn because it says your attack gets 3 damage, but you still just draw a card. That's crazy. Grog's really good. You get to use a lot of the Fire Attuned kit from Attack on Titan that has all these things that say they're hard to block, and you just keep slamming 3 damage on everything. You don't see the words non-throw on here anywhere, so you can just play a bunch of throws. They will always give you rage counters, which will always turn into a card and damage on the next one. And then you have this solid built-in defense of damage reduction on every attack. Again, Fire, Earth, Death, these all already have damage reduction in your foundations. So Grog's going to be really tough to kill. He's going to have a clear clock that he's presenting. He'll get to draw a ton of cards to counteract being a 5-hander. Yeah, he's really good. I am going to put him at a B right now just because in the early game, you can have those awkward 5-hander builds, but I could easily see him being an A tier, just 5-hander tank in the game. Ford, the Seas Champion, is a 6-hander on Death, Order, and Water. He says, enhance commit. You may try to play 1 card with Spellbolt in its name from your discard pile as your next card this turn. And then response tenacious, after your spell or weapon attack deals damage, seal a rival foundation, your next attack gets plus 2 damage. This is another character that has the potential to seal multiple defensive foundations on your rival stage during your attack string, which is very powerful. Unlike Not, who has this 50% for it to happen every attack, yours happens when your attacks get through. Also, just saying, hey, every time my thing gets through, my next attack gets plus 2 damage, is something we've seen before. It's fine. What's interesting about this guy is the enhance. So far, we've seen 1 Spellbolt. It's a little blurry in this image, but it's a 5 diff, 4 low for 6, EX3, with after this attack deals damage, your rival sacrifices 1 ready face-up foundation and builds the top card of their deck. So that's okay. That's a fine attack to be throwing as your second attack every turn. That is, I believe, the common Spellbolt. Might be an uncommon. I'm going to guess that there are multiple Spellbolts that he has available, because if he didn't, that would be weird. If you have cheaper Spellbolts, so 4 diffs would be nice because it's always going to be the second attack you play, or just have a Spellbolt on each block zone, so that on defense you can just commit and say, hey, I have the correct block zone in my discard pile, I'm going to try to block with that. You also get to look at the Water and Death kit from Todoroki 4, from Jetburn, who also cared about things being sealed, so something like Embrace the Past just says, if your rival has 2 or more sealed foundations, this attack gets plus 1 damage. That is something that you're probably capable of doing with Ford. Yeah, kind of overloading, sealing your rival's stage on your attack string is a pretty cool strategy. I don't know how good it's going to be, so I'm going to put Ford in like the C tier, C minus tier for now until we see all the spell bolts and see how good they are. But I could see him getting up to like a B tier if he has these really consistent, strong attacks that he gets to keep playing. If he has that tutoring a block zone defense, if he has that aggressive sealing your foundation attack lines, I think he could get up there. Caduceus Clay, Insightful Caretaker, is a 5-hander on Death, Earth, and Life. He says, enhance, commit, choose a player. You're going to choose yourself. That player gains 4 health. Each backup in their stage gains 2 stamina. And then enhance once per turn, Tenacious. This attack gets plus X damage or minus X speed. X equals the number of backups in your stage plus 2. If X is 4 or greater, draw a card. So to translate that, if you have 2 backups, when you use that enhance, X will be 4, so you will get to draw a card. We saw the first batch of backups in the Critical Role set about an hour before I'm recording this video, so I can't speak too much to them yet, but there will be backups. There's probably going to be playable backups. There's probably going to be enough support that you can build a deck like Caduceus who wants 2 backups at least in play at all times. Looking at the AOT support, something like the Smiling Titan is really cool in Caduceus, because if you can get that in, it's this defense piece where your rival has to attack that first, and if they don't finish it off with their attack, then you get to enhance and just put more stamina on it, gain yourself some health, and just keep putting up these shields from your backups. And then there's also things like the Beast Titan's Rock Barrage that lets you build in more backups from your discard pile and then gives you benefits for having a bunch of backups in play. I'm guessing that the support is going to be there for this to be a playable deck. Right now, it feels kind of like the not broken part of Recovery Girl, where you just get to gain a lot of health and have a lot of defense each turn. And again, maybe you just toss 1 throw out there each turn, slap some damage on it, draw an extra card. If you can consistently get to 2 backups in your stage and use this once per turn enhance on both players' turn, you're a 7-hander with 34 health who gains 4 a turn and has a speed debuff. That's pretty crazy. So I'm going to put Caduceus at a C right now until we see more backups. So far I've only seen common ones, so I think that there's a lot more power that we're going to see there. I could see him getting as high as a B. If Caduceus is doing things at A tier, that's probably bad for the game, because that's kind of like a very slow, grindy thing, which we just tried to take out of the metagame with the last ban list, but we'll see where he ends up. Mollymock Tea Leaf Carnival Hooligan is a 6-hander on Death, Order, and Void. He has Enhanced, Tenacious, Lose a Health. Your weapon attack gets +1 damage and gains Stun 1. Response, once per turn, reveal up to 2 cards from your hand. After an attack is played, seal 1 rival foundation for each card revealed this way. Your rival may sacrifice a face-up foundation to cancel this effect. So that responsibility is going to read fairly powerful, because revealing cards in your hand doesn't necessarily seem like a huge cost, and sealing 2 foundations or your rival destroying 1, you're typically happy with either of those. But keep in mind that first, you do need to have 2 cards to reveal when you use this, and your rival gets to make the choice that is best for them. So Punisher effects like that, where your rival gets a choice, always play out slightly less powerful than they read. So just keep that in mind. However, Mollymock just seems pretty generically good. Giving all of your weapon attacks a damage and stun is very strong. Combining that with his response to either seal or destroy a face-up lets you shut down your rival stage pretty quickly, especially combines with things like Ice Word Execution or Killing Intent, which are either selectively committing or sealing or just adding more stun to that. The weapon package on these symbols is very potent at doing things like that, and then you are on order if you want to finish off with a Walk the Dog or something like that. I think that Mollymock as an aggro 6-hander who just doesn't care about your rival's stage is going to be pretty good. We know weapons are pretty good. He's falling into a similar camp as Knot and Ford, who we just spoke about, who are also doing the same, shutting down your rival's stage by sealing stuff. But he gets to do it pretty consistently. compared to those two. So I'm starting him at a B tier, and then I could see him honestly going higher if he's popular, but he's fairly replaceable as far as what he's doing, so it's really going to be more about what symbol you want to end up on. If you want to be specifically on the order symbol and shutting down your rival stage like that, then yeah, this is the way to go. Percy, no, I'm not saying the whole name, is a seven-hander on air, death, and order. He says, response, remove a tech card from your discard pile. Your ranged or tech attack gets plus X speed. X equals the removed card's block modifier. This is a misprint or typo that is releasing with the card, unfortunately. When you read this ability, it's not clear when it happens, so it is supposed to say it's a response. The cost is removing a tech card from your discard pile, and the timing window is after you play an attack, a ranged or tech attack. So keep that in mind. And then response, lose a health after you play a card. Both players commit one foundation. So, yeah, Percy's weird. Percy is probably extremely aggressive. Losing a health to have both players commit a foundation is a huge cost on both sides of that. Remember, you have to commit a foundation too, and you only have 20 health to work with. It might be just enough defense to survive a turn 2 onslaught from your rival, but Percy going first is terrifying. Just poking around the tech that exists right now, there's not a ton that's going to give you these high block modifiers to give you the extra speed, but I really don't think you need it that much. I think you can ignore part of that. You just look at something like, again, Combined Firepower. This is a card that you get to play, which means you get to use your response and have both people commit a foundation. And you're going to get to commit out your rival's stage in the early game very, very quickly. It will not take much. Just, play one stun attack and they're committed out. On top of that, you're giving your stuff speed, so your attacks are going to be unblockable in the early turns pretty quickly. And I think on death, you can play Big Freaking Explosion if you have a way to snap momentum, something like Dual Needle Lunge. Then you can run this out there, use its ability after you've milled yourself a bunch with the Combined Firepower, and just explode your opponent. I don't know how consistent this guy is going to be, but the power level is definitely there. Until we see more, I'm starting him at a B, but I think he could definitely be an A tier character. Essek Thalis Expert Dunamancer is a 7-hander with 19 health on Chaos, Void, and Water, and is one of the stranger characters. So he's a mage with 2 abilities here. Response once per turn Tenacious, remove an action from your discard pile after a player makes a check to play a card they recheck, and enhance commit, your spell attack gains Echo. So this guy is strange. The spell attack gains Echo, we can't judge too much right now because we haven't seen a lot of the spell attacks that are going to come to us at rare and higher, so, the good ones. But just on its own, committing and then needing a momentum available to be able to echo something, it's a strong effect being able to play the same attack twice, especially if it's one of the better attacks in your deck. That's cool. It is a high cost. And then the other side of him really wants you to be playing actions, which we know that the mage class is kind of focused around actions. I'm sure there will be playable ones that we're happy to put in our decks, and it lets you recheck. So on its own, maybe you check to 3, you give yourself a chance to recheck into a 5. It is tenacious, so you get to do it on your build turn, which means you can have a pretty greedy build on the play, which is a big deal. If you check an action early on, you get to recheck later in your build string. And then he has interesting interactions against some chaos meta stuff right now, so Godzilla, Blue Flame Torment. There's a bunch of cards that affect your opponent's next check. So the Godzilla Enhance, spend momentum to give your next check +2. The Blue Flame Torment enhances, which gives your next check +1 or +2. And even the Blue Flame Response that hits your rival's check for -2. Essek has this cool interaction here where you're basically resetting any bonuses to the check. So your Godzilla rival says, hey, spend a momentum, my next check to play an attack is +2. They play their attack. You get to say, actually, you're going to recheck that, and you no longer have that +2 bonus. And if you fail, your turn is over. So if that side of the ability is good, then Essek has some legs here. But it's niche enough that I don't really see him as a staple character in the format. So right now I'm putting Essek in the D rank because both of his abilities either are very niche in what they do, or we don't really have enough information about the set to see if they're any good. But out of all the characters, this is the only one I would consider to maybe put in a sideboard. If you're playing one of the other mages on Chaos, or I think even Void has a few overlaps with them, maybe you go against a Godzilla and you say, you know what? That Godzilla is adjusting his checks too much. I already have these actions in my deck. I'm on symbol. I'm going to sideboard into Essek and mess with my rival's game plan, and maybe that's a good enough strategy. So starting in the D tier, and we're going to put him up in this kind of nebulous sideboard tier. Pumat Soul, Magical Proprietor, has a lot of abilities. He's a 6-hander, 28 health on Air, Chaos, and Order. He has Enhance once per turn, remove a foundation from your stage, build an asset or backup from your hand, and Response once per turn, discard a card after you play an attack card, choose one. It gains EX3, your rival commits 2, or you draw 2. So the important things to note here are that response you can use on both turns. If you block with an attack card, it triggers. And then the Enhance lets you build in assets or backups straight into the stage without having to wait a turn on them. So backups in particular, if you build them in, you'll have the ability to use their abilities before your rival has a chance to attack them. So Pumat Soul right now is my pick for what I think I'm going to be building competitively early in the season of this format, because of the card Emerge Victorious, which I talked about extensively in my last video. Basically, this card from Attack on Titan lets you sacrifice a backup to go find the next Titan backup or Titan shift attack in your deck and build that in as the backup version. But it doesn't specify that you have to sacrifice a Titan backup, and we know that there are backups in this set that aren't Titans. So you can build one of those in with Pumat Soul on your first attack for the turn, use the Enhance, turn a foundation into this backup from your hand. Then you play Emerge Victorious, you use the Blitz, you sacrifice the backup you just built, and then you go through your deck, and you only hit on a Titan backup or a Titan shift attack. So the one of choice is probably Colossus Titan attacks. Suddenly you're getting this huge backup guy who commits to do crazy things to your opponent for this relatively low resource cost. It requires a lot of setup, a lot of deck building stuff, etc. But you have this potential to ramp out these really powerful cards that your opponent might not be ready for. And I think that's really cool and something that hasn't been explored that much in this game, at least when I've been playing it. So that's what I'm going to be going for. Also, he shares 3 symbols with Walk the Dog, and when you block your rival's attack with an attack card, you can use your response to have them commit 2 foundations, and then your first attack on your turn, you can discard a card to have your rival commit 2 foundations, and Walk the Dog is going to immediately be on a 4-diff, which is very, very strong. So these are the things I'm going to be looking for with this character. I need to see a lot more of the set before I know what to do with him. Ideally, I'm going to be playing like 12 backups in my deck to build in with his Enhance and then turn into the Colossus Titan. Right now, with what they've shown us with the 6 or so common backups, there's only one that I'm really interested in including, but I'm guessing that at higher rarities, there will be stuff that I want. So right now, I'm putting this guy as an A because I'm going to play him, and of course I'm going to win my event. But we'll see how you guys do with him. If it turns out that this interaction with Emerge Victorious either gets eroded out of the game or just isn't high power enough to be that impactful, then he's going to drop down to the ranking. But for now, he's an A. Lady Kima of Vord is a 5-hander with 36 health on Fire, Life, and Order. She has First Form. Add an attack from your discard pile to your card pool. Your checks to play cards get +1 this turn. And Enhance, your non-throw attack gets +X damage. X equals half the printed difficulty of the preceding attack in your card pool, rounded up. A lot of people have been poo-pooing on this character. I think that she actually has a lot of potential. The things to note here is the enhance to give something damage really adds up, especially if you can put a big attack straight into your card pool at the start of your turn. So the most obvious one, since it's on the infinity symbol already, is Titan Armbar. If you can first form that into your card pool, all your attacks are getting +2 damage, and the first attack you play after your first form is also getting this +4 damage from your enhance. If you can play attacks that clear themselves, things like Lethal Slash, Dual Needle Lunge, that sort of thing, you get to keep using the printed difficulty of that first card you put in and have really major damage buffs. So right there, you have some pretty potent stat potential. You have to figure out how to either put enough speed on your attacks to actually get them through, or be drawing enough cards and playing enough attacks for it to get through to your rival. The other thing that I think is important to note is going second. If you first form, you won't have any attacks in your discard pile unless you reviewed one, but you still just get +1 to your checks. So going second, that first build turn you have, you can actually play a 5 difficulty foundation and guaranteed pass it, because worst you can check is a 3, +1 from your form, you can commit Kima to pass it. So something like the Manipulations of Zeke Yeager, which potentially adds cards to your hand on each attack, you get to build in much easier than anyone else in the game, which is cool. It's something to be looking at. It's something to potentially be building around. I think this character has a lot of potential, but I don't think that people are going to be looking that hard at her in competitive play. So right now, until I can figure out a really strong build to answer the questions that she's giving you of how do you actually play enough attacks or get attacks fast enough to get through, I'm going to start her in like a C+ range and then let her grow from there. Allura Vysoren, Arcanist of Tal'Dorei, is a 6-hander with 28 health on Chaos, Life, and Void. She says, enhance twice per turn, remove 1 action from your card pool, add the top card of your deck to your momentum. And response, commit a foundation. After an attack is played, seal it. Your next check to play a card gets +3. I think that this is the best character in the set, just in terms of raw power and potential. The twice per turn enhance to clear an action from your card pool and take a momentum is pretty crazy. It's asking a lot of you to have actions in your deck that don't remove themselves when you play them. They stay in your card pool, and you have reasons to play them, but just clearing your card pool is broken, and getting free momentum is broken, and you can potentially do this 4 times in a turn cycle. That's a ton. And then the response, which is mostly going to be defensive, committing her and a foundation to seal an attack that your rival plays. You can seal your own attack, which maybe people are going to build around that, but I doubt it. Seal a rival attack. This means any blitzes don't happen, any enhances on the attack don't happen. If it has a keyword like throw or shift or even just stun that you're worried about, that doesn't happen. And then your next check to play a card gets +3. So that might be blocking the attack that you just sealed, or if you don't care about that attack anymore because you sealed it, maybe you're taking that one to the face, and that +3 to your check carries over to the next attack that you want to block. So all in all, I think that Allura needs to find the right package of actions to put in her deck that she's going to turn into momentum. She needs to find the momentum outlet, but that's not too hard on these symbols. But yeah, just really high potential here to do broken things. I'm easily putting Allura in the A+ tier. I think she's the only character I can see who's really going to get into that S tier of characters. Those are characters that warp the format in such a way or win enough events that they eventually get eroded or cause something else to get eroded in the game. Yeah, really, really strong character. I'm excited to see what people do with it. And finally, this is just all the characters in the set kind of put in those ranges I talked about of where I think they land in a tier list. So again, S tier, these are characters that are going to be winning events, consistently top-cutting, and are doing something so powerful that the rest of the metagame warps around them. This is your Godzilla, as well as Bertolt 2, Mimic, Recovery Girl, a bunch of characters that just got eroded because they were too good. That's kind of what you want to look at in the S tier. In A tier, these are all characters that I think might get in. A lot of them aren't really locked in place. But these are characters that you'll see multiple times in top cuts. Characters that are very obviously good, that you don't need to have a perfectly tuned deck for every single event. They're just doing a lot of powerful things no matter what you stick with them. These are going to, again, be consistent top cuts. Expect to face these characters a lot. And then from there, B tier, this is stuff that you're not going to be embarrassed registering it for a regional. You might take this to locals and go win your locals with it. All solid things, but until we see more cards, these are going to stay about where they are. So still, powerful on face. There's existing stuff that's good with them, but not doing anything truly broken. Then following that, C tier, this is the fun decks. Most of these are going to be less efficient with what we're given. They are going to be fun locals decks. That is what it is. And then D tier, anything in D tier, I will probably never play myself. I would only expect to face some of these characters if it's a character that a player really, really likes. For example, Scanlan, I think I'm going to play against one or two of those in the run, but I don't see anyone registering Jester 2 when Jester 1 is right there if they love the character. And that's it. That is my tier list video for Critical Role Heroes of Exandria. These are all subject to change, of course, as we see more cards in the set. I'm going to be doing a lot of deck building once we get that full spoiler, and playing the set as much as I can. I think the design of these characters overall is really, really great. I think it's a huge improvement from Attack on Titan. I'm really excited to get into it. So, let me know what you guys think of this video. If there's a character that I rated way too highly or way too low, let me know in the comments. Or you can just yell at me in the Discord like you do. Until then, peace out.